we're going.
All right, we will commence the April 29th meeting of the Parks Committee. And we will note that Alder Weary, Alder Burnett, Alder Scannell, and Alder, is it Gerlach or Gerlach?
It is Gerlach.
Gerlach, okay. Are all present. Can I get an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
There's a motion by Scannell.
Second.
Second, Burnett.
By Gerlach. And discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? And can I get an approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Scannell, second by Burnett. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On regular business, election of chair and vice chair. I'll entertain any nominations for chairman.
Scannell.
All right, I have a nomination for Alderman Scannell. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? All right.
I accept.
You accept? All right. Well, congratulations, Alderman Scannell. I'm going to hand it off to you.
Okay.
Do you have to actually vote or?
Oh, do we? Yeah, I guess so we would, wouldn't we? It could be zeros.
Yeah.
He might not vote for himself. All right. Those in favor of Alder Scannell, do we need a roll call for this, or can we just voice vote?
I think you could probably voice vote
All right.
unless you
Voice
want to
vote.
do a roll call.
No, voice vote's fine. Those in favor of Alder Scannell as chairman, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. All yours, Alder Scannell. Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you. We are now moving on to election for the vice chair, isn't it?
Yep.
Yep. So I'll take nominations for vice chair, and I would nominate Alder Weary. Any other nominations for vice chair? Going twice. Any other nominations? The last time, any other nominations for vice chair? All in favor of Alder Weary as vice chair?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, Alder Weary, you're my vice.
Oh, I'll be your vice.
Are we ready to move on, Shelby? Or who's running the control?
James is running
James?
Civic Clerk.
Okay, James, let me know when you're ready to move on.
We are good to go.
Okay, our second agenda item, consideration with possible action on the request by Alder Corpus Dax to look into newer, larger signs at parks indicating that dogs must be leashed at least parks and or trails, and potentially a social media campaign reminding residents that dogs must be leashed. Staff?
So I'll have James give a presentation here, and I don't know, is Alder Corpus Dax on?
Oh, there she is. Okay, I didn't see. So I'm sorry. Would you like to speak on this first, Alder Dax?
I'll let James go first.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So, man's best friend. We are, over the years, dogs in the parks have been an evolving conversation. And, as you know, people are very fond of their dogs. Over 50% of our population actually owns at least one dog. So they're definitely something not going away anytime soon. And we're definitely going to have to address continually as we go forward. But we have been in communication with the police department quite a bit, and our constituent, as well as alder persons and our citizens. Dogs in the park is something that we, quite often have to address and try to figure out a way to have this opportunity for people to, to have their dogs with them, but also do it in a safe and responsible manner. So many years ago, we actually wrote an ordinance that would allow dogs to park on a leash, and it does specify a 7-foot leash in the ordinance just to give it some type of boundaries instead of just saying a leash, because there's many sizes of leashes, of course. But what we have come up with is a plan based on this communication to actually work with the police department, and we've identified that there are about 5 different locations that actually would be a good test parks to kind of try out some signage in the parks and see if that would help with some of the issues they've been seeing. For example, a lot of times, parks that have bikers in the park, for example, where dogs will maybe run up to a biker and, they may not even be necessarily a safety issue, but as bikers, a dog runs up to you on a bike, they've had to bail on their bikes a few times. Kids that maybe dogs are friendly, but if a dog is running up to your child in a park, that can be quite alarming as a dog runs up to your child, of course. So we've had a few issues where we think it is time to maybe address this. And after talking with the senior animal control officer, Mallory Mavis, she did agree that she would be a proponent for placing these signs in about 5 different park locations to start. Those are the 5 main parks that they typically get calls on. And then from there, we'd look at putting them in locations, the bigger parks, for example, with multiple parking lots or multiple entryways. They may get, 2 to 3 signs in those parks to start with. And then we could always address the issue if it continues to get bigger. In addition to that, we are looking at running a social media campaign and also a public awareness effort with not only social media, and to explain to people what how to bring your dog to the park, but do it in a safe and responsible manner, but also look at some public awareness efforts. Officer Mavis and I talked this afternoon about possibly doing some a leash giveaways or leash events where you could come and if you get your dog licensed, maybe you also get a leash with that, and then people can explain to her. She also does a lot of communication. She has brochures that will actually give people the outlines, because a lot of times when she goes into a park and if the dog is not on a leash, she'll give people warnings, but she'll also give them information provided with them to also then know what the ordinance is and what the stipulations are in terms of dogs in the park. So she's definitely all for that. And in recent years, we've had some other events like Bark in the Park, and we've had some other opportunities recently that have come up that came together with PD in the parks. We can maybe put some awareness events possibly, within our park system. So I think we're okay, and we're open to actually trying that out. The parks that we're looking at doing first, let me just pull up my sheet here. So we are looking at initially we're looking at the top parks that she thought, and we, after we conversed, would be Colburn, John Muir, McCullough, Wilder, and Baird Creek. So those are the 5 parks that we thought we'd initially do this kind of campaign per se, with both signage and also with a PR type social media campaign, and also some public awareness, and work with some community partners. She's been working with some local agencies to also maybe put some videos together to show how people with leashes, when somebody comes up to you on a bike or somebody comes up to you with other dogs, how the interaction could be most receptive, I guess, to a positive interaction. So we have some signage that we have that we worked with PD on, that we would be able to work with our sign shop to start with, like I said, 2 to 3 signs per each of these parks. And, then we would follow up and coordinate and make sure this concern is going in the right direction.
This is fantastic. I think this is exactly what I've been hearing at neighborhood associations wanting larger signs, signs in better placement, so that when residents are coming in with their dogs, that they see what exactly is the ordinance, or what is or isn't allowed. Baird's Creek, McAuliffe, Wilder, those are the ones that I've been getting an uptick in resident complaints about people bringing their dogs and they're not leashed, or having dogs that are running up to someone who's on a bike or someone who's running or a pedestrian, and that person doesn't know, is this dog going to bite me? Is this dog going to jump on me? I had someone call recently saying, I was fearful for my child because a dog from another person just came and ran up to my child. So I think this is great. This is what they're asking for. And I think Alder Dorff had also said that the police had reached out to her as well regarding this issue.
Okay, Alder Dorff, would you like to add anything?
Yes, I would. And I had forwarded that, I think, Alder Weary to him, because I knew he was the former chair. But I think this is exactly what Officer Mavis was asking for. And Commander Warwick had also reached out to me, and just if the dogs are going to be in the parks, they really should be on a leash. With the social distancing, hopefully they won't come within 6 feet, of another person right now. But even after social distancing hopefully is over, then the dog should still be on a leash. And what they were asking for the most was signage, so that people knew when they came into the parks that this was expected. Because without that signage, not everyone knows what the rules are. Thank you for letting me speak on this.
Officer Mavis, did you care to have any comment on this or anything?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I'm a Zoom newbie. So this is the first time I'm logging on, and I'm on my work cell phone. So I'm scrolling through all the little video panels. So hopefully I've done this right. Thank you for having me. I'm really glad that we've kind of addressed this. I've really advocated for signs in the city parks ever since getting hired with the department in 2007. There's been just a ton of complaints, and there's usually 5 parks that tend to be an issue where people are frequenting, and we've had just multiple complaints, whether it's people on bikes, people walking with their children or playing in the park. And I myself have had a few run-ins. I live on the east side, so I went to McAuliffe Park about 2 years ago, and my son at that time was 3, and I get out of our vehicle, and this gentleman had pulled up in the parking lot and opened his door, and these 2 dogs went flying over to my son, jumped on him. And the concern that I have is I don't know if your dogs are vaccinated. I don't know if there's a safety concern where my child ends up falling down or hitting his head, potentially creating an injury. So there's many different issues. We've had quite a few folks reach out who are biking the trails over at Baird Creek. Those are specifically bike trails in a lot of the areas. Some people have had to tip their bikes. Dogs come running up to them, and someone they unleash their dog and they let them run, and they're running how many yards ahead of them, and they have no clue what that animal is doing, or if it defecates because it's so far ahead. So then we have an issue with waste that's not getting cleaned up. And so those are a lot of the complaints that we have. I know, some of the other ones are, kids that are allergic to dogs or frightened of dogs because they themselves have been victims of dog bites previously. So those are things that we want to address. I've spent a lot of time trying to sit at the problem parks and see what the problem is. I have people that either walk in and unleash the dogs to go, running loose on the trail. They pull up in the vehicles and they just let the dogs run out. And then that's where a lot of those issues are. A lot of the people are not aware of these problems. And so, I don't want to have to issue a citation. I'd rather explain to them, hey, we have this ordinance to have your dog leashed. We have another city ordinance that requires animals to be attended within 5 feet of a public right of way. I don't see that a park should be really any different. You know, and if you're letting your dog run loose and your dog runs up to someone else, and those two dogs get into a fight, and you need to intervene, that may result in a bite themselves by redirecting. You know, one dog owner might say, well, my dog's friendly, but then you have an issue where this other dog maybe isn't, but is under control of its owner. So those are all things that, you know, we just want to address really. And I think signage will help with that. And then also, if we do need to take enforcement action, which I have not had to do at this point, it would be our burden of proof, really. You know, if someone's like, well, there's no signage in the parks, you know, it does help us with enforcement when it does have to go to municipal court.
Thank you. Alder Steuer.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, thank you, Alder Corpus Dax, for bringing this forward. I appreciate that. I think it's a good thing for all of us. So I don't know if this, as far as the signage goes, would this be just for this particular item, or is there something as far as, you know, general cleanup of a dog? One of the things we've had issues with on trails and in parks is things being left, if you know what I mean. That could be addressed, or is that part of the bigger picture, or as far as signage with ordinances and things like that? But, you know, general cleanup of your pet. I don't know. What
we'll do is we'll look at what other communities have done for signage, and we'll see what works and what doesn't. I think that's a great idea to talk about the waste issue, because that has been an issue in our park. So, but we'll take a look at what others are doing, and we'll kind of copy that, because it's probably working for other communities.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Alder Galvin.
Alder Galvin.
Hi, thank you. Same thing. The East River Park, not so much on the east side of the East River, but the west side. I've had several complaints. People letting their dogs off the leash. They're chasing the wildlife, the geese that are trying to nest. They're running up to other dogs, starting problems. I've had people threatened by dog owners to threaten them actually to get into fisticuffs over when people say, hey, your dog's off the leash, or your dog's going to the bathroom and you're not picking up after it. I know there's little, I don't know, I think they're about 8 by 8 square little signs saying have your dog on a leash, but I've had plenty of neighbors at each of the dead ends complain about dogs off their leash, dog waste on the walkway or on the grass near it, kids playing soccer or ball, and there's pets running loose and things like that. So Baird Park, you know, I've been out quite a bit with this disease pandemic going on, and you see quite a few dogs off the leash. People will walk them to the park and then let them run to exercise them, you know, to let them chase a Frisbee or a ball or things like that. So I don't think it's just concentrated on a few parks. I think it's pretty much park-wide. Anyone that's been out campaigning knows there are a ton of people with dogs as pets in the city of Green Bay. Just a ton. So that's just, I'm just chiming in on what everyone else is saying here. This is a community-wide problem, and, you know, I appreciate the signage and I appreciate what enforcement the PD's been able to do, but it's a combination of education and enforcement. I think that's going to have a real impact here long-term. We can't do it for a weekend and then forget about it. Thanks.
Anyone else? I just have a question. How are we progressing with dog parks? I think if we've got more dog parks where people can go and unleash their dogs to give them a nice big area to run in, that might help with this problem too. What's our status there for dog parks?
Well, currently we only have the one dog park at Whitney. You know, it's something that we've been talking about for quite a number of years, is should we be adding more dog parks throughout the city? You know, the biggest problem we have with dog parks is we can find room for the small little runs like what we have at Whitney. Those can fit into multiple parks. But really, you know, for a decent dog park, you need something with a lot of square footage that you can fence off. And that's where we're running into an obstacle, is finding a location like that in the city. You know, we do have some areas along the East River where there's big, wide open grass areas, but those are in the floodway and we're not allowed to put fencing up in those areas. So, you know, we're looking at it. There are a few other possibilities coming up. I know that there's a dog park planned in the shipyard development. That would be the next one coming up. We're also talking about possibly putting one in Dan's Park in that small area. It would be on the east side of Dan's school, so it's not part of the school. We have kind of an open area over there. So we're exploring putting kind of a smaller dog run in that location also. So those are the two locations we're looking at right now. We don't currently have funding for either one, but we're looking at where we could get funding for both of those.
Well, what about Henisra or Baird? I mean, those are huge parks, but is there not much open area or?
Well, I mean, Baird would have some potential if you want to put it in kind of the wooded area. You know, if you want to section off an area of wooded property, there's some room there to do that. Henisra, again, you'd have to fence off a certain area. There's potential at both of those. I think those are good suggestions.
Okay.
Randy?
Yes. Alder Galvin?
I guess I wonder how hard we've really been looking. You go down to Madison and some of these other more dog-friendly communities. They've got numerous large dog parks in areas that I think there's 2 or 3 in the Madison area that are on old landfills. We've got one across from Edison Middle School. We've got one out by the golf course. We've got one just off the end of North Military, and that one's actually partially fenced in already. We've got, I think, a lot of other areas that we could put these dog parks. And again, the problem is once you open them up, are the dogs licensed? Do they have their shots? Are people picking up their feces and that? But at least these large areas, when Mallory goes in or Officer Mavis goes in or any of the other enforcement people go in and people say, well, where the hell are we supposed to take our park? I mean, our dog, we pay a fee and everything like this. Where are we supposed to take them? You can't say Whitney because you can't run a dog there. I mean, you could do maybe 2 or 3, but if you get too many dogs in there, it's just going to be too much energy and stuff going on. You can go out to the Brown County Dog Park. That's 5 acres, a fenced-in area. But there's nowhere in the city that when we stop these people, we can tell them, hey, this is where you could go exercise your dog. And I think we need to be a little bit more pushing on this as a solution to these people that want to take their dogs off leash. I mean, you have to applaud the ones that at least have them on leash going to the park, but then they want them to run. But you can't run a dog on a leash, and most yards in the city aren't big enough to be running a dog. I was just looking at the old material for the Whitney Park. It ran about $16,000 to build and fence that park in. I know that when I was on the board that developed the Brown County Park, and we raised all that money ourselves. We just got a coalition of people together. We raised the money, and we actually installed the fencing all the way around it ourselves. So, I mean, there are solutions out there, and I just think we need to push a little bit harder and make it something that we want to do to make this a better community and give dog owners an option other than walking. Thanks.
Yes,
Alder Scannell. Yes, I agree with Alder Galvin. We need a place in the city for people to take their dogs off leash and let them run. So dogs really want to do. So that's part of the frustration folks feel. I represent the 12th district, as you know. The Brown County Dog Park is in my area. I don't think it's in city limits. I think it's either Hobart or Howard, perhaps. Mm-hmm. And just a week ago, it was full, even with the pandemic. I mean, full. It's a high demand. Far west side of Green Bay, there's Howard. Howard has one off of the far end of Military. So we have some options on the far west side of Green Bay, even though the Howard might not be in city limits. There are a lot of Green Bay residents who use it. One thing I will say, if we move forward with more dog parks, then I'm trying not to get off the subject. When I was on the county board, we attempted to put one at Fonferret Glen. If you're familiar with that county park, it's a very natural, nice area. Neighbors push back very strongly. So whatever the plan is, we have to make sure that it's the right park and there's enough public knowledge and support amongst the dog owners to do it the right way. But also, great ideas. I agree. We got to figure something out. One dog park in a city of our size is not enough. Thank you.
Am I able to interject something?
Certainly, if you're, yep.
So right now, the parks that there's the Bellevue Dog Park, and There's the county dog park, which is on West Mason Street, which is actually in Oneida. And then there's the Whitney Dog Park. The Whitney Dog Park is nice, but it's a smaller area. And I think a lot of folks have concerns if their dog were to escape. There's a lot of traffic there. It's right off of Main and Jackson there by the Attic Coffee Shop. A lot of people have voiced concerns that there is no dog park that's accessible for the people on the east side, particularly like the far east side, whether it's by Baird Creek or McCullough. And then, Colburn has lots of acreage there, and there's also a lot of complaints there. So I don't know if there can be like a middle ground, not just, downtown circulated towards the river, so it's kind of balanced, one on the east side, maybe one on the farther west side, so that we can address some of these issues. And like Alderman Galvin had said, a lot of folks are just there to exercise their dogs, and most of them are cooperative. It's just a handful of people that, just are negligent pet owners, and they're kind of getting a bad rap for all the other dog owners out there doing their thing. So.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Well, lady and gentlemen, what are your wishes here? Take a motion.
Yes, I would be happy to make a motion.
Okay.
Going back to the agenda item, I move that we instruct staff to make the decision about the size of signs and where they ought to be placed to solve this problem of dogs being off leash in 5 testing sites.
Okay, we've got a motion by Alder.
Second.
Seconded by Alder Weary. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Let me know when you're ready for the next one, James.
We're ready.
Okay, consideration with possible action on the request by Alder Galvin that all parks be supplied with trash cans year-round so residents have somewhere to put their trash when using our parks. Alder Galvin, would you like to start with this, or you want staff to go first?
Sure, well, that's fine.
Thank you.
Oh, you're leaving us?
I have to leave, but thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's all right.
Have a good night, guys.
Take care now.
Thanks. All right, Alder Galvin.
All right. This goes back to, again, like I said, I've been out quite a bit. When I had my dog, I was out walking in Green Bay Parks, east side, west side, just to give him some variety. And also as an alderman, I get complaints quite a bit. In fact, I got one from a small child that attends Aldo Leopold School that as part of her Earth Day project wrote me a letter through her teacher. Someone might be related to him on the city council. And it was a nice letter. And she talked about garbage in our parks and how it affects the animals when they get caught up in the garbage, and it causes them illness and sometimes death. And at the same time, when I've been out walking the parks, I always wondered, why do we have parks and we have garbage all over the place in the parks, but if you want to pick it up, the only way to get rid of it is to take it out with you with your vehicle. And I know that from an economic standpoint makes a lot of sense. And we don't have to pay someone to pick it up. But I'm a taxpayer and I pay money for these parks, and I don't know why we can't have trash cans in all the parks year round. There's some along the west bank of the East River, but they put them nowhere near the foot trail. They're up by the ball diamond, which wasn't used for the last 2 years because of the amount of rain in the park. I just think, if it's a money issue, I'd like to know what that shakes out to be, to see if it's something that we could look at improving. But I can't see why every park in the city does not have trash cans accessible to the people using the parks year round. And so that's why I put this communication forward. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I can kind of, what I'll do is I'll give you a brief summary here of what we currently do with our trash cans and how it works. So that you have a better idea of what motion to make moving forward. So talked to our park superintendent about this in detail today. He said that every single park in the spring, summer, and fall has at least one garbage can in the parks. Obviously, the parks that have a lot of use we have more garbage cans than one. So it's really based on the amount of use and the amount of garbage that we haul out of there on a weekly basis. Throughout the year, what we do is we actually evaluate it. And in the parks where we see that.
Oh, sorry, Dan. We lost your video, audio. Dan, if you could wait a minute. James, I'm not hearing Director Dishtite at all.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know why we lost him for a second there, but hopefully he pops back on.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Yeah, for some reason my microphone just went off.
Yeah.
So anyway, what I'll do is I'll give you a brief description of what we currently do with our garbage cans. Spoke to our park superintendent here today to get some more information. Throughout the entire park system, I was told that there is at least one garbage can in every single park every spring, summer, and fall season. The parks that are heavily used, we bring more garbage cans in than that. We try to place them in the locations where there's the most activity. So we usually place them by ball fields or soccer fields in the summertime, or by the park shelters, especially if there's a parkie program. And then throughout the year, we evaluate and we move the garbage cans around as the uses shift throughout the year, and as the amount of garbage changes. So there's certain times of the year where we have more people in the parks than others. In the winter months, we take about half of our garbage cans away and we put them in storage. We have cans in the parks where we have active winter use, and we're promoting it. So that would be Triangle Hill, that would be our sledding hill locations like John Muir Park or Colburn. It would be all of our ice rinks. We have garbage cans at all of those locations. It's also the areas where we kind of plow the parking lots. Where we don't have garbage cans are the areas where there's just a walkway through the park. Yes, we'll plow the walkway, but we're not promoting any winter activities, so usually people don't stay in those parks very long. They're just walking through. Part of the reason we take the garbage cans out is it's a lot of work for our staff to empty those on a daily basis. And in the parks that where we're not promoting active winter use, we just don't see a lot of garbage to keep those and empty them regularly. Secondly, especially in the winter months, we would have an additional cost the more garbage cans we put in, because we'd have to buy covers for them. Because when it snows, it ends up in the garbage cans, and it makes it very difficult to empty our garbage cans. So in the winter months, we like to have lids on the garbage cans that are within our parks. Not as big of a deal in the spring, summer, and fall, but in the winter, we really need those covers, and we don't have a lot of those right now. As far as the trails go, we do have garbage paved trails. It's kind of difficult with the trail because there's such a long stretch of trail, and how many garbage cans do you need along a trail is kind of debatable depending on who you ask. Part of it is, when we're emptying the garbage cans on our trails, we need it easily accessible to our vehicles. So if you have something, if you have the garbage can spaced sporadically throughout the entire trail system, it could be fairly time consuming to empty all of those. So we typically put the garbage cans kind of at the trail head locations and not midway down the trail. So that's currently what we're doing with the garbage cans, and that's the reasoning behind it. It's always tough every spring, because every spring in the parks, we find garbage scattered throughout every single park. So we usually get a lot of complaints every spring when the snow first melts. Why is there so much garbage in the parks? And the reason you're seeing so much in the winter is because we don't clean it up in the winter because it gets buried in the snow. Throughout the rest of the season, spring, summer, and fall, we're able to pick those up. We do that on a weekly basis in all of our parks. as we have time, we'll go in and pick up the garbage as we're mowing the lawns and doing other things. But in the winter, we don't do that. So it all kind of accumulates throughout the winter. And then in the spring, you see a lot of garbage laying around the parks in the spring. And we always get to them to remove the garbage, but it's not always as timely as what people would think. And we run into that same problem with dog waste, especially on our trails. You know, we're not able to pick up the dog waste along our trails in the winter because it gets buried in the snow. So when the snow melts, we find a lot of dog waste. And that's usually when we get the complaints, we should have more bags. But it's not necessarily that we're getting an increase of garbage in the parks in the winter or an increase in the people not picking up the dog waste. It's just we're not picking it up because it's being hidden in the snow. Whereas the rest of the year, we are picking it up. So I guess that's kind of where we're at with garbage cans, how we handle it, how many we have in the parks, et cetera. So I guess whatever, whatever direction you want us to take on that, I'm open to suggestions here.
Alder.
Sure. Well, thanks for that, Dan. And I'm following up on what Alder Galvin said as far as numbers of cans. How many? We have a lot of parks. I mean, do you have an idea how many garbage cans we do have at the present time in our parks? Is there a number?
I can get you that number, but I don't have it off the top of my head.
Okay. And then another thought, with the signage that we were just talking about in the parks, I don't see why, like along a trail, maybe there could be a small map that's put on the board saying, here's where the garbage cans are, maybe be a point. You could even have that on park maps too, or some kind of a map to show where these are located. Because, if people knew where they were, people would pick up the garbage and they might, walk another 100 feet to put it away. So just a thought. So that's all I have. Thank you.
I guess one other thing I did want to mention that I forgot to mention is when we do get requests for additional garbage cans, we look at that on a case-by-case basis. So if we have requests from the public or from an alder, we do oftentimes go out and throw another couple of garbage cans out at a specific location if we're being reported that there's an issue. So we definitely do that now, and we will continue to do that also moving forward. So.
Alder Galvin.
Thanks for that information, Dan. I appreciate that. And I understand the logistics of getting through the snow to get to some of these garbage cans. But as we encourage our society to be more foot-friendly or bike-friendly within our parks, we've got snowshoers, cross-country skiers, we've got people walking dogs. They do this year-round. And for example, like I brought up the East River Park on the west bank of the East River. There's technically a trailhead where every one of those streets comes down and meets the park. And I certainly wouldn't expect trash cans at every one of those spots. But that trail is roughly a mile long. And they have one at each end. When people may be walking down from Emily, Eliza, Porlier, any number of other streets, they may not see that trash can. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate the fact that when there's a complaint, you guys investigate and decide if it needs to be there. But as we try to encourage our citizens to use the parks year-round, I just think we should be looking at maybe a more thorough process of having cans out there year-round. If we have to pay for the covers, fine. I'm not sure what to tell a guy if he feels he has to drive a pickup truck to every can to pick it up if he can't walk, 100 feet or so to go empty out a trash can on foot and then take it back. I know we want to be efficient and we don't want employees getting injured and stuff, but sometimes, you can't always just do everything from a vehicle. So I think we have to be cognizant of that also. I mean, if it's good enough for someone to be out there walking, or if we're clearing the walkway, I don't know why they can't get down that walkway or get to where that walkway is at by the road and empty out the trash can there. Now, I'm and in my career, I've probably been in every city park. And I can't think of anywhere there'd be any spots where the cans would be totally inaccessible to employees to get at if need be. Like you said, a lot of these parks, you can certainly have a garbage can in the parking lot. I mean, the parks are that small. I know the one in Astor Park for the ice skating rink. I don't know if there's one actually next to the rink, but I know there's one where the footpaths all converge right near the shelter, which makes it real easy for people to get to it. And yet, yes, you still find dog feces on the ground. So, I mean, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So,
No.
but I guess what I would like to see is if the park could take a look at the parks and see what this would cost us to implement a plan where every park has at least one can year round, and I guess that would require a cover. And what the cost would be, the extra time for an employee to be going out once a week. Maybe in the wintertime, you only have to go out once every 2 weeks or once a month to pick up the trash. It may not be that much. So I guess I'd like to see some kind of information on that. If it comes down to where, we're talking significant money, then yeah, we need to take a hard look at that.
Is your request or concern specifically in the winter months, or is it more garbage cans in general year round?
No, I would have to say that more in the winter months. I mean, year round, like I said, the one on Emily Street, for instance, is up by the ball diamond. Like I just made the comment about an employee walking 100 feet. There's no reason someone walking their dog can't walk the distance from the trail up to where the trash can is by the ball diamond. So I'm not asking for a ton more. In fact, during the warm months, I've never seen a lack of trash cans in the parks. It's more during the winter, I would have to say.
Yeah, we can put together a feasibility study or a cost estimate as far as what that would take. What we would do is we would look at the cost of the covers. We probably wouldn't have to buy any more barrels, but we would need covers.
Right.
But more importantly, look at how much additional staff time that would cost the city to do the additional rounds of garbage pickup.
Okay.
But I'd be happy to put that together for you.
Sure. Thanks.
Anyone else on this? We'll take a motion. Anyone?
I would make a motion. This is Burnett. Make a motion to refer to staff to come up with cost estimates to have a garbage in parks year round, specifically winter months.
Okay, motion by Alder Burnett to refer to staff. Put them
Second.
together. Second by Alder Weary. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Let me know, James, when you're ready to move on.
Good to go.
Okay, consideration with possible action on the approval of an amendment to the revocable occupancy permit with the Green Bay Riverside Unit Owners Association, Inc. to install landscaping along the Fox River Trail. Staff.
So in August of 2019, the Park Committee and City Council did approve a revocable occupancy permit with the Green Bay Riverside Unit Owners Association, Inc. It's a lot to say right there. So what we did was to allow them to install a staircase and a walkway on city property from their outdoor deck to the Fox River Trail. So that was approved. The stairs were recently put in earlier this spring. The deck was built really close to the property, and so there was not adequate room to put the staircase on their own property without tearing out the deck and rebuilding it. So we just allowed them to put the staircase on city property. Now that the stairs are installed, they realize that in order to maintain the slope along adjacent to the stairs, they're really going to need to install some retaining walls. So they're looking for approval to install some block retaining walls, some landscape block retaining walls, and then to kind of re-landscape the entire back edge there along their property line. Like I said, the building itself and the deck was built very close to the property line, so the landscaping would be on city property, all the planting also. So we don't have any concerns with this request. It would be on them to pay for all of the installation and the ongoing maintenance of the landscaping and the walls. So really all we're doing is approving the landscape materials and allowing them to install it. They'll pay for it 100%. The law department did review this. They're the ones who put this together. So I'm in support of it from a staff perspective. I guess, does anyone have any questions?
As far as design or anything, do they need to run that by us, or we pretty much figure any design is going to be okay?
Yeah, so they submitted a landscape plan to us already, and our park planner is also a landscape architect. So she reviewed the plans, and everything's acceptable to us.
Anything else from anyone?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Alder Burnett.
Second.
Seconded by Alder Weary. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously.
Okay.
All right. Ready for number 5.
Ready for number 5. Consideration with possible action on the request from Wisconsin Public Service for a 12-foot wide utility easement at Ted Frisch Park to provide new underground electrical facilities to serve the park shelter. Staff?
Yeah, so I'll give a brief description here, and I do want you to know that there is a representative from WPS on the meeting here if you have questions for him. But what this project is, the existing electric service to the park shelter, it's in need of replacement due to the age of the existing overhead lines and also the number of electrical outages that happen in the neighborhood. So what they want to do is basically remove the overhead facilities and bury the wires underground. The line would be bored instead of trenched, so they would have very minimal disturbance on the site. And before burying any underground utility, it's their policy that they secure an easement to allow them to do it. So this, as you can see on the map in the agenda packet, you'll see where the easement would be located, and it cuts right through the park. That's kind of the shortest distance to get to the park shelter and do this work. So the work is to service the park shelter and replace outdated lines. So the Law Department and Public Works and Parks Department all reviewed the easement language, and we're okay with what you see in the agenda packet. And I really don't have any concerns with this request either. So if anyone wants to open the floor, you're welcome to, or if anyone has questions, we can go to that too.
Okay, Alder Burnett first.
I do have a question, but I would make a motion to open the floor to hear from the gentleman from WPS.
Okay, motion to open the floor by Alder Burnett.
Second.
Second by Alder Weary. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the floor is now open. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Bob Leskowski. I am temporarily living at 4515 Terrace in Hobart.
Okay. Thank you. And then is there anything you just care to add, or did anyone have a question?
No, I think Dan kind of covered it for our aspect. Again, we just have a lot of outages, and this is a really old line, and it's mainly because of the tree line out there. So we would prefer to just put the entire line underground and hopefully avoid some outages and update the wire.
Okay, Alder Burnett.
Yes, I had Mr. Lasecki, I think was your name. I'm sorry I didn't catch that. I corresponded with the Neighborhood Association president, and I let him know this would be on the agenda. He has, assuming everything goes okay with the virus and we're able to gather, they have an event planned for June 12th. Do you know when the work would be completed?
Yeah, as soon as we get the easement signed, we have everything we need. So it would probably be in about a 2 or 3 week time frame. And we would definitely work around that event if it went that long, but it shouldn't take that long to run this underground. It should probably take a little over a week to run the underground. So you're probably looking about 3 or 4 weeks, though. We should be done by end of May.
Okay, thank you.
When was the event, Alderman Burnett, so that I follow up on that?
June 12th.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Chairman. I make a motion to close the floor.
Motion to close the floor by Alder. Well, just any other questions or anything? Anyone? Okay, motion to close the floor by Alder Burnett. Second.
Second.
Second by Alder Gerlach. All in favor?
Aye. Move to approve.
Okay, and now we have a motion to approve by Alder Burnett, second by Alder Weary. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously.
Ready for number 6?
Number 6, consideration with possible action on the request by Wisconsin Public Service. Oh, yeah. Okay, yep. For a 12-foot wide utility easement in Beaver Dam Creek Greenway, just south of Kennedy School. Staff?
So again, WPS, Wisconsin Public Service, would like to install a new electric service on 9th Street. In order to do this work, they'll need a 12-foot wide utility easement in the Beaver Dam Creek Greenway. So this electric line would tie into a transformer, which is located on city property. So that's why they need the easement. Again, this work would be bored instead of trench, so the site disturbance would be minimal. The Law Department, Public Works, and Parks all reviewed the easement language and were okay with it. So in general, staff is in support of this request. So again, if you'd like to open up the floor, if you have questions, feel free to do so.
I think everybody's
Motion
good.
to approve.
Motion to approve by Alder Weary.
Second.
Second by Alder Burnett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously.
Ready for number 7?
Consideration with possible action on purchasing HVAC equipment for the park shop from Temperature Systems, Inc. for $28,700. Staff.
Yeah, so the HVAC system at the park shop is original to the building from 1991, and it's starting to show some signs of wear. So what we'd like to do is replace the entire system before it actually fails, because it's a lot larger system than a residential unit, as you can imagine, so it's much more pricey and much more complicated. So in 2019, the City Council did approve $70,000 for this project through the bond request. So what we're doing is we're breaking this out into 2 phases. So the first phase is to quote out the actual equipment to purchase it directly. So that's what this quote is that we're approving. So we quoted out several pieces of HVAC equipment. We have 1 air handler, 1 air condenser, and 2 boilers. So we did request specific information or specific products when we submitted the quote, because all of those pieces of equipment have to work together. So you couldn't have one type of one variety and then another type of another. They all had to be kind of working together and all similar type models. But there were several vendors that could supply a quote for this specific equipment. Only one vendor, Temperature Systems, Inc., submitted a quote. Their quote was for $28,700. We did review what they're proposing to submit to or sell to the city. Everything seems in line with budgets and what our specifications are. So what we're looking for is approval to go with this low quote and purchase the equipment from this vendor. Phase 2 of the project is we'll be quoting out hiring a contractor to install this equipment. So you'll be seeing that at one of the next park committee meetings. I don't know if it's going to be in May or June, but at some point in the near future, we'll need to get approval to hire a contractor to install it. So right now, all I'm looking for is approval to purchase this equipment.
Anybody have any questions, comments?
Will you entertain a motion?
Motion, yes.
I move to approve.
Move to approve by Alder Gerlach.
Second.
Second by Alder Weary. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? That passes unanimously.
All right, we're on to
the director's report.
So yeah, I don't have anything to add for the director's report. Everything is pretty thorough. If anyone has questions, feel free to ask.
Anybody have any questions?
You have one, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I have one, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, yeah, Alder Weary.
Thank you. Dan, are we starting to look at, I guess, backup plans or preliminary plans for Bay Beach, the pools and leagues? I know everything's up in the air, but do we have some contingencies we're looking at?
Well, I mean, right now we're doing the best we can to plan for an opening this year. We haven't been told that we can't open, so we're planning that we will open right now. So we're going through hiring lifeguards, we're hiring summer staff at Bay Beach, and we're going through that process. Now, as you know, over the next couple of weeks, we'll get a better idea of whether or not we're actually going to be able to open Bay Beach and the pools and our playground programs, all of those. So, you know, unfortunately, I don't really have an answer for you right now of whether or not we're going to open, but our contingency plan is we're planning on all of the preparations necessary to open. And if we're not able to, then we'll reevaluate our plans and figure something else out. Now, the one thing I do want to mention now, though, is in regards to the pools. So one of the biggest problems that we're going to have is if we are able to open the pools and the health department, the issue we're going to have is the number of lifeguards. We have 3 large pools, and that we need a fairly large number of lifeguards in all 3 pools. And right now, we're not able to train lifeguards. So typically right now, we would be training new lifeguards in preparation for opening our pools, but we can't do that because of the social distancing guidelines that are put in place. So our lifeguard pool is just existing lifeguards who are already certified. So I think that if we are able to open the pools, we are going to have a shortage of lifeguards, and we are going to have to figure out a game plan. It's likely we're probably only going to be able to open 2 pools, or maybe change which pools are open on certain dates. So that's something we're trying to work out a plan right now, but hiring lifeguards is going to be an issue.
Poor Joannies, they won't have a pool this year.
Even at Colburn, we're looking at issues like, the feasibility of having the inflatables in there. Social distancing and people touching those regularly and converging on those inflatables. We're having discussions right now, should we have inflatables or not? So the other thing we're looking at is we're looking at our lessons. We're going to have to do lessons differently than we did in the past for this season because of COVID-19. So yeah, I mean, we're doing as much as we can to prepare for it, but there's still a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, Alder Burnett.
Yes, thank you. Director Ditchite, I noticed the city of Kenosha have decided to close their pools now for the year. Is that a policy decision with the Parks Committee? How are those discussions? Where would we have an input as a city council?
There's a possibility you'll have an input on that, and there's a possibility you won't. Our health department has not given us any mandates. So the health department may come back and say you're not opening the pools, or the governor may come back and say you're not opening the pools. If they don't put those restrictions on us, then it would be on the city to make that determination of whether or not it's feasible. I'm sure that if we are able to open, we're going to have restrictions about number of patrons in the pools, which will then affect the amount of revenue that we're actually bringing in. As you know, our pools are not money makers. And so now if we're limiting the amount of people who can be in the pools, we're going to operate probably at a larger loss this year than we would in previous years. So
if we have a government order that comes from the state government, obviously our hands are tied. We'll have a further discussion, I'm sure. But as you know, anytime a public service is cut, especially the pools, especially Colburn, given the fact that, we've been very anxiously waiting for that to open. My input, we'll discuss this at the point, obviously, but to balance the 3 pools, if at all possible, so that every neighborhood has access to a pool, if not for limited hours. I think that would be much more appropriate, but I trust the right decisions will be made at the time. Thank you. That's it.
Anyone else? Okay, then I would just like to say a few things. First of all, I'd like to give Keith Wilhelm a big thank you, and I hope I have a great, happy retirement. Appreciate his service. I'm got a couple questions, but actually, I could save these questions for later to the director. There's nothing that I don't think is necessary for public discussion, just my own personal edification. So with that, we can move on to the final item for our agenda if James is ready.
Well, do we have to receive and place on file the director's?
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Yep. I'll take a motion to receive and place on file.
So moved.
So moved by Alder Gerlach, seconded by Alder Weary.
Burnett, you messed us up.
Sorry.
We both have beards. Yeah. I'm Burnett. He's Weary.
Seconded by Alder Burnett. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that is received and placed on file.
All right, we're good to go.
Next park committee meeting schedule is May 13th, 2020, same bat time, same bat station. Is that a problem with anyone? So we can keep going just like...
Yeah, Chair Scannell, the previous alder on the Public Works or the Improvement and Services Committee would often have a lot of meetings that were very unusual based on his schedule. So consistency would be good for the committee, for our staff. So I would encourage to keep the meetings consistently on Wednesdays. Obviously, there are conditions that don't always are met, but also 5 o'clock I think would be good. Not entirely that it revolves around my schedule, but 5 o'clock would be good, and I think that would be good for our staff as well, right at the end of the workday. So I would encourage a consistent meeting on Wednesdays at 5 o'clock, to be followed by INS or
with a 5-minute break. 5-minute break.
Yeah, 5-minute break. However, you and the chair of INS think, if you want to alternate the staff break, do it different.
Okay.
Department.
I agree with that. Any questions? Okay, then we will meet again Wednesday, May 13th, 2020, 5 o'clock. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by Alder Burnett.
Sorry. Second.
Second by Alder Weary. All in favor?
I don't even know if we... Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks,